Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive.
Yeah.
You know, I was really looking forward to this one.
Me too.
This is the one on Mel Robbins' 5-second rule.
Yes.
And I know a lot of our listeners have asked us to kind of take a look at this one.
Right.
And I think, you know, the reason why this is so popular is because on the surface, it's so simple.
It really is.
But then when you really dig into it,
Yes.
there's actually a lot more there.
Absolutely.
And it's deceptively
Yes.
simple. So I think, you know, a lot of people, when they think 5-second rule, they're thinking of like food dropping on the floor.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely.
But this is completely different.
Yeah. It's about
very J. Curry.
Yeah. Pushing past fear.
Like kind of how to make yourself do the things that, you know, you should do.
Right.
But you just don't feel like doing
Exactly. Like taking action.
Yeah.
And it really is remarkable how such a simple concept
Yeah.
can have such a profound impact on people's lives.
So like, how does she even come up with this idea?
Well, so part of this, she tells a story in the book
Yeah.
about how she was kind of in this rut in her life where she just couldn't get out of bed.
Mm-hmm.
She was hitting the snooze button.
Right.
Couldn't seem to get going on things that she wanted to do.
So she's like a rocket scientist or something?
No.
Okay.
Nothing like that. She was just feeling stuck.
Right.
And one day she's watching TV.
Okay.
And she sees a rocket launch.
Okay. A rocket launch.
A rocket launch.
This is like her big inspiration.
And she has this aha moment
Okay.
because she realized that countdown they do,
The 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1,
Okay.
is all about taking action.
Okay.
It's about blasting off
Yeah.
towards a goal.
All right.
And she thought, what if I could apply that same principle
To my everyday life.
to my everyday life?
Oh, okay. I see.
Wait.
So it's almost like,
It's like tricking your brain.
yeah, like a mind hack.
Yeah. So, but there's actually science behind it too.
Okay. So it's not just.
It's not just motivation.
Okay.
There's actual neuroscience
Okay.
at play here.
So tell me about that.
So basically, our brains have this like autopilot system.
Okay.
It's called the basal ganglia,
Basal ganglia.
which keeps us in our routines and habits.
Oh, or bad.
Good or bad, right?
Okay.
And then we have this manual control system,
Oh, right.
which is the prefrontal cortex,
Okay.
which is responsible for decision-making and taking charge.
Uh-huh.
But when we hesitate, when we overthink,
Okay.
our autopilot takes over.
Oh, I see.
And we end up stuck in those same old patterns.
Even if we don't want to be.
Exactly.
Okay.
Even if we consciously want to change,
Right.
our autopilot keeps us stuck.
Wow.
So the 5-second countdown
Yeah.
is like grabbing the wheel.
Okay.
It's shifting from autopilot to manual control.
Oh, wait.
It activates the prefrontal cortex,
Uh-huh.
and it gives us the power to choose action.
Instead of just reacting.
It's like that moment when you're about to hit the snooze button,
Okay.
but instead you count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1,
Yeah.
and you just get out of bed.
You're like overriding your instinct.
You're overriding that automatic response,
Definitely.
and you're choosing to take action.
Wow.
And it's amazing because even Mel Robbins' brain
Yeah.
was subconsciously drawn to that rocket launch on TV
Uh-huh.
because deep down she craved change.
Oh, wow.
It's like her brain was giving her the answer
Yeah.
before she even knew the question.
Okay, so
It's pretty remarkable.
I get it.
Yeah,
The 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
right?
I'm taking control.
You're taking control.
But how does this actually help me, like, reach a goal?
So think of the 5-second rule as a tool.
Okay.
And this book gives you a whole toolkit
Okay.
for different areas of your life.
Okay.
Let's say you want to finally start that workout routine.
Okay. Yeah. I've been meaning to.
I know you've mentioned that.
Yeah.
So instead of hitting the snooze button,
Yeah.
you count down from 5
4, 3, 2, 1.
and you just get out of bed.
Oh, I see.
You're using that countdown to override
Yeah.
that instant,
To stay under the covers.
to stay cozy and warm. Or imagine you're in a meeting at work
Okay.
and you have this great idea,
Yeah.
but you're feeling hesitant to speak up.
Right. I don't want it.
You don't want to interrupt or, whatever.
Yeah.
So you count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1,
Yeah.
and you voice your thought.
Oh.
You push past that hesitation
Okay.
and you contribute.
Wow.
Or let's say you're trying to eat healthy,
Okay. Yeah, that's another one.
which I know is a goal of yours.
Yeah.
And you're
Yeah.
reaching for that extra cookie,
Uh-huh.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Put it down.
You put it down.
Okay. So
You resist that temptation.
it's like all these little...
That these little moments where
Okay.
you're building your courage muscle.
Okay.
Each time you use it,
Yeah.
you're making it easier to take action the next time.
So it's not just like big life changes. It's
It's the everyday stuff. Like all the little things where I hesitate.
Precisely.
That's really interesting.
And each one of those is an opportunity to practice courage.
Okay.
But you want more than just starting things, right?
Yeah.
What about those things you're afraid of?
Right, like fear is a big one.
Fear is huge.
Yeah, I would love to like not be so afraid of things like public speaking or putting myself out there.
Those are common ones.
Yeah.
So how can the 5-second rule help with that?
Yeah.
So the interesting thing is, Mel Robbins used this to overcome her own fear of flying.
Oh, really?
Which was so bad she'd have panic attacks.
Wow.
But she decided to use the 5 seconds differently.
Okay, how?
Before each flight, she would count down.
Okay.
And then immediately shift her focus to positive images.
Oh, so instead of thinking about the bad stuff.
Instead of focusing on the fear,
yeah,
she'd picture herself landing safely, enjoying the trip, thinking about the people she was excited to see.
So like a mental vacation?
Yeah, like creating a mental anchor.
A happy place to go to?
Right.
When those fearful thoughts crept in?
I see. So she's basically using the countdown
to interrupt that fear response and replace it with something positive. It's like using the 5 seconds to rewire her brain's automatic reaction to flying.
Oh, that's interesting.
And she didn't just make this up. You know, she connects this to historical figures who made courageous decisions.
Really?
That changed the world.
I love that. Like seeing how these ideas play out in a bigger context.
Yeah.
So who is she talking about?
So she talks about Rosa Parks.
Oh, wow.
Refusing to give up her seat on the bus.
Right.
Sparking the entire Montgomery bus boycott.
Yeah, that's like
a pivotal moment.
A huge moment.
In the civil rights movement.
Yeah, but what does that have to do with counting to 5?
Well, Mel Robbins points out that Rosa Parks didn't plan that act of defiance.
It was like a spur of the moment thing?
It was a spontaneous decision.
Oh, wow.
And crucially, she didn't hesitate.
Right.
She acted on instinct. And that's the beauty of the 5-second rule.
Yeah.
It short circuits that inner critic.
Yeah.
Those voices that try to talk us out of taking risks.
Like all the what ifs.
Exactly.
Right.
Remember how you said you want to be more confident?
Yeah.
This is how courage builds confidence.
Okay.
Those small, seemingly insignificant acts of bravery.
They add up.
They add up.
That's powerful.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it wasn't just Rosa Parks.
Oh, there's more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mel Robbins also talks about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.,
Okay.
who was elected to lead the bus boycott just days after Rosa Parks was arrested.
Wow.
He later wrote that the decision happened so fast, he didn't even have time to think it through.
Wow. So both of these like huge moments in history.
Yeah.
Fueled by split-second decisions.
It really puts things into perspective.
It does.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
It shows that courage isn't about being fearless.
Right.
It's about acting despite the fear.
Oh, that's a good point.
It's about trusting your gut and taking a leap of faith.
That is a really good point.
You know, we all need to hear that sometimes.
Yeah, I know I do.
But how do we actually get to that point?
Yeah, how do we stop second-guessing ourselves all the time?
Well, Mel Robbins talks about this waiting phenomenon.
Waiting.
Yeah.
Like waiting for the perfect moment.
Waiting for the perfect moment,
Right.
waiting for our fears to vanish.
And then we never do anything.
And in the process, we miss out on so much.
Okay.
She uses examples like E.L. James,
The 50 Shades of Grey author?
the author of 50 Shades of Grey, who was a busy mom writing in her spare time.
Wow.
Or Ed Sheeran,
Okay.
who started out playing music in parks
Really?
without even a permit.
Wow. So it's like that saying,
Yeah.
start before you're ready.
Start before you're ready.
Just do it.
Take that first step.
Even if it's messy.
Even if it's imperfect.
Yeah.
The 5-second rule is that initial push,
Okay.
that spark to ignite action.
I see.
And as you keep taking action, momentum builds, confidence grows.
And then you start to realize you can do more than you thought.
Exactly.
Okay, so this is all making a lot more sense now.
Good.
I see how it all fits together.
Yeah.
But let's get like practical for a second.
Okay.
Like, what's actually happening in my brain
Okay.
when I do this countdown?
Yeah.
What's the neuroscience behind it?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
So the book really delves into the neuroscience of decision-making and how our feelings can hijack our best intentions.
Oh, yeah?
You know?
All the time.
So Mel Robbins explains that we often confuse what we feel like doing with what we actually want to do.
Oh, that's a good point.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you give me an example?
Yeah, give me an example.
Okay, so let's say you want to work on that creative project.
Oh, yeah, I've got like a million of those.
I know you've been putting it off.
Yes.
But you feel tired,
Always?
uninspired.
Yep.
maybe even a little bit scared.
Yep.
So that feeling of fatigue,
It wins.
it can easily win, right?
Yeah.
So the 5-second rule helps break that link between feelings and actions.
Oh, okay.
Instead of letting your feelings dictate your choices, you use the countdown to override them and choose action.
So it's like a little pep talk to my brain.
It's like telling your feelings.
Yeah.
Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Let me think about this.
Okay.
It's fascinating because the book mentions this research by a neuroscientist, Antonio Damasio, who found that even the simplest decisions,
like what?
like choosing what to eat for lunch,
Really?
are heavily influenced by our emotional state.
Oh, wow. So like if I'm feeling down,
Yes.
I'm going to reach for the comfort food.
You might reach for the comfort food,
Okay.
even if you know it's not the healthiest choice.
Right.
So the 5-second rule helps engage your prefrontal cortex,
Okay.
the part of your brain that plans and makes decisions.
So it's giving my brain a chance to catch up to my emotions
To make a conscious choice.
instead of just like running on autopilot.
Exactly.
Why?
And by consistently choosing action over feeling, you can actually rewire your brain
Really?
and create new habits.
Oh, that's interesting.
But it's not about ignoring your feelings altogether.
Right.
In fact, Mel Robbins has this really interesting technique
Okay.
for those moments when you're feeling completely overwhelmed.
Like all the time.
Yeah.
So secret.
She suggests focusing on what you want to remember about a particular experience, even if you're feeling stressed or anxious in the moment.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's like choosing to create a positive memory, even if the situation itself isn't ideal.
Okay, so like how does that work?
Okay, so imagine this.
Okay.
You're in Mel Robbins' shoes, and you're dress shopping with your daughter for prom.
Okay.
Everything is going wrong.
Oh, no.
You're stressed, you're about to ruin this special day.
Yeah.
But then she stops and asks herself, what do I want to remember about this day?
Oh, that's a good question.
Right.
Instead of focusing on the negative,
Exactly.
I'm going to focus on the positive.
It allows her to step out of that negativity and focus on the joy of being with her daughter.
Yeah.
The excitement of this milestone event.
Oh, wow.
And that shift allowed her to let go of the stress and actually enjoy the experience.
Wow.
It's incredibly powerful.
Yeah. So it's like you're choosing.
You're choosing to write a different story.
Yeah.
Even if you're not the author of the circumstances.
I love that.
And it reminds me of something else she talks about.
What's that?
Reframing anxiety as excitement.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
Choosing to interpret those nervous feelings in a more positive light.
So like instead of freaking out,
yeah,
I'm going to look at this as like a good thing.
As a sign that you're about to do something amazing.
Okay.
And this isn't just positive thinking. There's actually science behind it.
Really?
The book mentions a study where people who reframed their anxiety as excitement performed better on a challenging task.
So it's not just about feeling good.
Right.
It actually helps you perform better.
It impacts your performance.
Wow.
And that's a key takeaway from the 5-second rule.
Okay.
It's not about ignoring our emotions.
Right.
But understanding them and choosing how we want to respond.
So like taking control.
Taking control.
Okay. I am really starting to see now how this is more than just getting things done.
It's about taking control of your mind and your emotions.
This is really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we've talked about reframing anxiety.
Right.
But what about real deep-rooted fear?
Yeah.
That feels like a whole other beast.
Right.
How does the 5-second rule tackle that?
Yeah, like how do we deal with that?
So Mel Robbins dedicates a whole chapter to conquering fears.
Oh.
And she uses her own fear of flying as a case study.
Oh, wow.
And it's really relatable because she doesn't sugarcoat it. She talks about how crippling it was.
Okay.
But then she walks us through how she used the 5-second rule. Along with visualization. To manage that fear.
So she didn't just like count backwards and suddenly she was fine.
No, it wasn't magic.
Okay.
But it was a process.
Okay.
She talks about using that countdown to interrupt the fear response.
Yeah.
And then immediately shifting her focus to positive images.
Okay.
Like picturing herself landing safely, enjoying the trip.
Okay.
Thinking about the people she was excited to see.
So like a mental escape route?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like redirecting her thoughts away from the fear.
I see.
And by practicing this over and over, she basically retrained her brain to connect flying with those positive experiences instead of panic.
Instead of all the bad stuff.
Exactly.
It's almost like exposure therapy.
It is like exposure therapy.
Oh, wow.
The 5-second rule acts as that initial push to overcome the avoidance that comes with fear. It's that first brave step towards facing it head on.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So this is giving you a lot to think about.
Yeah, definitely in terms of like my own fears.
Yeah.
But what about
those times
when it's not just about like a phobia?
Yeah.
It's about like having a tough conversation.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Like setting boundaries.
Yeah.
Dealing with conflict.
Oh, yeah. I hate conflict.
Or even just expressing how you really feel.
Oh, yeah. That's a hard one.
It is.
Yeah.
But it's a crucial part of personal growth.
Right.
And it's often where that 5-second rule courage is needed the most.
Okay.
The book really emphasizes using it to push past those moments where we hesitate to say what needs to be said.
Oh, yeah. I know exactly what you mean.
Right.
Those conversations are so scary.
They can be so daunting.
Yeah, it's so much easier to avoid them.
It is easier.
But then things just get worse.
They do, don't they? And Mel Robbins reminds us that discomfort is often a sign we're on the right path. True growth rarely happens in our comfort zones.
So like when I'm feeling uncomfortable, that's a good thing.
It can be a good sign that you're pushing yourself to grow.
So that feeling of like, this is hard, but I'm doing it anyway.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the 5-second rule becomes that little nudge
to just do it.
To say, okay, I'm scared.
Yeah.
But I'm going for it.
Okay, I like that.
Remember that story about Mel Robbins talking to her dad?
Yeah, after his aneurysm.
After his aneurysm diagnosis?
Yeah.
That was such a powerful example.
Yeah, it was.
Of using the rule to connect with someone.
Yeah.
On a deeper level.
Especially in a hard situation.
Especially in a difficult situation.
Yeah.
In that moment, facing a possibly life-changing event with her dad.
Yeah.
The 5-second rule helped her push aside her own fears.
Right.
And have a truly vulnerable conversation.
Wow.
It really shows that sometimes the bravest thing is just being honest and authentic, even when it's scary.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be like a big life or death thing.
It doesn't. I think about those smaller moments when you want to express appreciation, offer support, or just say, I love you.
Yeah.
That 5-second rule can help us push past shyness or awkwardness and connect with people in ways we might otherwise miss.
Wow. This is really making me see this rule as like a whole way of life.
It's a philosophy, a way of approaching life with more courage and intention.
Yeah.
And recognizing that we have the power to choose our responses, to shape our own lives one 5-second decision at a time.
Wow.
But there's one more piece of this puzzle we haven't touched on yet.
Okay, what's that?
Sharing our gifts with the world.
Oh, that's a hard one.
It is for a lot of people because it requires us to be vulnerable and put ourselves out there.
Right.
But Mel Robbins talks about how fear can hold us back from expressing our creativity, sharing our ideas, and making a real contribution.
All right, so it's not just about me.
It's not just about personal growth.
Yeah.
It's about using that growth to make a positive impact.
Okay, on the world.
Yeah, we all have something to offer.
We do.
Right.
But fear often silences those voices.
Yeah.
And she shares this great story about Paulo Coelho, the author of The Alchemist.
Oh, yeah.
Who had no idea what the book was about.
Really?
When he started.
Wow.
He just trusted his gut and kept writing.
And it became a global phenomenon.
Exactly.
It's like you have to follow your intuition.
You do.
Even when you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mel Robbins encourages us to stop waiting for permission or validation.
Right.
And just start creating.
Okay.
Sharing and expressing ourselves without holding back.
That's a good one.
Right.
But that's hard.
It is hard.
What about the fear of failure?
That's a big one.
Yeah, what if I put myself out there and I totally flop?
She tackles that head on.
She reminds us that many successful people faced those same fears.
Good.
Remember Rovio?
Who are they?
The company behind Angry Birds.
Oh, yeah.
They launched 51 unsuccessful games before they hit it big.
51 flops.
51 flops.
Wow.
It shows that failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of the journey.
Okay.
The key is to keep creating, keep learning.
Right.
Keep pushing ourselves.
Okay.
Mel Robbins even talks about Picasso.
Oh, wow.
Who created thousands of works of art.
Yeah.
But only a fraction are considered masterpieces.
Right.
It's about embracing the process, the experimentation.
Yeah.
Knowing that there will be stumbles along the way.
That's a good way to look at it.
Right.
Don't let, like, the fear of not being perfect stop you. Just get started.
Start creating and see where it leads.
Okay, so we've talked about putting ourselves out there creatively.
Yeah.
But Mel Robbins also talks about using the 5-second rule.
Yeah.
To build relationships
Yep.
that support our growth. Okay, so like finding my tribe.
Finding your tribe,
Yeah.
people who believe in you and encourage you to reach your full potential.
Yeah, because you can't do it alone.
You can't do it alone.
Right.
And she shares another personal story that beautifully illustrates this.
Okay.
Remember when her dad was diagnosed with the aneurysm?
Yes.
She was struggling to connect with him, to express her feelings.
Yeah.
And in that moment,
Yeah.
she used the 5-second rule to push past her own discomfort.
Okay.
And ask him a simple but powerful question.
Okay, what was it?
Are you scared?
Wow.
What a brave question to ask in such a fragile situation.
Yeah, and what did he say?
He surprised her by saying he wasn't scared.
Oh, wow.
He was grateful for his life, had no regrets.
Wow.
He saw the surgery as a chance to try and fix things.
Okay.
And even talked about going skydiving on his 90th birthday.
Wow, so that one question
opened the door to a truly meaningful connection. And it reminds us that sometimes the most courageous act is just being present.
Okay.
Listening deeply and expressing our true feelings.
Even when it's hard.
Even when it's hard.
Yeah.
And this applies to all kinds of relationships.
Not just the big ones.
Not just the big emotional moments.
Right.
It could be striking up a conversation with a stranger.
Okay.
Reaching out to an old friend. Or just telling someone you appreciate them.
Right.
It's about recognizing that those seemingly small acts of connection can have a ripple effect.
Okay.
Can have a ripple effect.
Yeah.
Creating a kinder and more supportive world.
That's really cool. And I like how she talks about how she uses it
Yeah.
to kind of deal with procrastination.
Yes.
Because I think we all struggle with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a universal struggle.
Putting things off.
Yeah.
Especially things that we don't want to do.
Especially things we don't want to do.
Like right now, I'm procrastinating on cleaning my house. Right?
But how does the 5-second rule help with that?
So she makes this really important distinction in the book between destructive procrastination and productive procrastination.
Oh, there's two kinds.
There are two kinds.
They didn't know that.
Yeah. So destructive procrastination is when we're putting off things that are actually important to us and that are ultimately going to hurt us if we don't do them.
Like paying my bill.
Like paying your bills.
Okay.
Or going to the doctor.
Or cleaning my house.
Or cleaning your house, yes.
Okay.
Productive procrastination is when we're putting off things that maybe aren't as urgent.
Okay.
Or maybe we're actually using that time to kind of let ideas percolate.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so it's not always a bad thing.
Okay.
But the 5-second rule is really helpful for that destructive procrastination.
Okay.
So when we're avoiding something that we know we need to do, we can use that countdown
to just get started.
Yeah. And she has this great example in the book about a PhD student named Scott who was struggling to finish his dissertation.
Oh, yeah.
He was so overwhelmed.
Again.
He was procrastinating like crazy, spending hours on social media.
I can relate.
Yeah, we've all been there.
Yeah.
But then he started using the 5-second rule.
Okay.
Whenever he felt that urge to procrastinate, he would count down from 5.
And get to work.
And just start working on his dissertation.
Even if he didn't want to.
Even if he didn't feel like it.
Wow.
And guess what?
Right.
He finished his dissertation.
He did?
He did.
Oh, wow.
And he actually ended up getting a job.
Oh, good for him.
That he loved.
So the 5-second rule
helped him overcome that procrastination.
Okay.
And achieve his goals.
Wow, that's really inspiring.
It is.
Okay, so we talked about fear. We've talked about procrastination.
Right.
Is there anything else that this rule can help us with?
Well, she also talks about how we can use it to stop worrying. Oh, I would love to stop worrying.
Wouldn't we all?
Yeah.
It's something that I think a lot of us struggle with.
Yeah, my mind just like never stops.
Right.
It's always going.
Always thinking, always analyzing.
Yeah, and I end up worrying about things that never even happen.
It's like our brains are wired to focus on the negative.
Right.
To scan for threats.
Yeah, right. And then that just creates more anxiety.
Exactly.
So how can the 5-second rule help with that?
Well, Mel Robbins suggests using it to interrupt those worry cycles.
Oh, okay.
So when you notice yourself starting to spiral into those what-if scenarios, you count down from 5.
And then what's it?
And then you shift your focus to something else.
Like what?
It could be something you're grateful for.
Okay.
Or something positive that's happening in your life.
It's like redirecting my attention.
Exactly.
Instead of letting it just run wild.
It's like taking your mind off the worry train.
Okay.
And putting it on a different track.
I like that analogy.
And she gives a really relatable example.
From her own life.
Okay.
She was driving to pick up her daughter. And she started worrying about all these things.
Like
What if her daughter wasn't ready?
Okay.
What if there was traffic?
Right.
What if she got into an accident?
Oh, yeah. All those, like, irrational fears.
Exactly.
Wow.
And she realized she was spiraling, so she counted down from 5, and she shifted her focus to the fact that she was going to see her daughter, who she loved and who she was excited to spend time with.
Oh, that's sweet.
Right. And that simple shift helped her to calm down and to enjoy the rest of her drive.
So it's like choosing to focus on the good stuff.
Choosing to focus on the positive.
Instead of getting caught up in the negative.
Exactly.
Right.
It's about training your brain to look for the good.
Instead of just automatically going to the bad.
Right.
Wow.
It's powerful stuff.
This is really cool.
It is creating a kinder and more supportive world.
Yeah. That's really cool. And I like how she talks about how she uses it to kind of deal with procrastination.
Yes.
Because I think we all struggle with that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Putting things off.
Yeah.
Especially things that we don't want to do.
Especially the things we don't want to do.
Like right now, I'm procrastinating on cleaning my house.
Right.
But how does the 5-second rule help with that?
So she makes this really important distinction in the book between destructive procrastination and productive procrastination.
Oh, there's 2 kinds.
There are 2 kinds.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So destructive procrastination is when we're putting off things that are actually important to us and that are ultimately going to hurt us if we don't do them.
Like paying my bills?
Like paying your bills. Or going to the doctor.
Or cleaning my house.
Or cleaning your house. Yes. Productive procrastination is when we're putting off things that maybe aren't as urgent. Or maybe we're actually using that time to kind of let ideas percolate.
Oh.
You know, so it's not always a bad thing. But the 5-second rule is really helpful for that destructive procrastination.
So
when we're avoiding something that we know we need to do, we can use that countdown
to just get
started. And she has this great example in the book about a PhD student named Scott who was struggling to finish his dissertation.
Oh, yeah.
He was so overwhelmed.
I bet.
He was procrastinating like crazy.
Right.
Spending hours on social media.
I can relate.
Yeah, we've all been there.
Yeah.
But then he started using the 5-second rule. Whenever he felt that urge to procrastinate, he would count down from 5.
And get to work.
And just start working on his dissertation.
Even if he didn't want to.
Even if he didn't feel like it.
Wow.
And guess what?
What?
He finished his dissertation.
He did.
He did.
Wow.
And he actually ended up getting a job.
Okay, good for him.
That he loved.
So the 5-second rule
helped him overcome that procrastination and achieve his goals.
Wow, that's really inspiring.
It is.
Okay, so we've talked about fear. We've talked about procrastination.
Right.
Is there anything else that this rule can help us with?
Well, she also talks about how we can use it to stop worrying.
Oh, I would love to stop worrying.
Wouldn't we all?
Yeah.
It's something that I think a lot of us struggle with.
Yeah, my mind just like never stops.
Right.
It's always going.
Always thinking, always analyzing.
Yeah, and I end up worrying about things that never even happen.
Like our brains are wired to focus on the negative.
Right.
To scan for threats.
Yeah, and then that just creates more anxiety.
Exactly.
So how can the 5-second rule help with that?
Well, Mel Robbins suggests using it to interrupt those worry cycles.
Okay.
So when you notice yourself starting to spiral into those what-if scenarios, you count down from 5.
And then what?
And then you shift your focus to something else. Like what?
It could be something you're grateful for.
Okay.
Or something positive that's happening in your life.
So it's like redirecting my attention.
Exactly.
Instead of letting it just run wild.
It's like taking your mind off the worry train. And putting it on a different track.
I like that analogy.
And she gives a really relatable example. From her own life. She was driving to pick up her daughter. And she started worrying about all these things.
Like what?
Like, what if her daughter wasn't ready?
Yeah.
What if there was traffic?
Right.
What if she got into an accident?
Oh, yeah. All those like irrational fears.
Exactly.
Okay.
And she realized she was spiraling. So she counted down from 5. And she shifted her focus.
Into what?
To the fact that she was going to see her daughter.
Okay.
Who she loved. And who she was excited to spend time with.
Oh, that's sweet. Okay.
And that simple shift helped her to calm down.
Wow.
And to enjoy the rest of her drive. So it's like choosing to focus on the good stuff.
Choosing to focus on the positive.
Instead of getting caught up in the negative.
Exactly. It's about training your brain.
Okay.
To look for the good.
Instead of just automatically going to the bad.
Right.
Wow.
It's powerful stuff.
This is really cool.
It is. And, overall, this deep dive into Mel Robbins's 5-second rule, it's been so eye-opening.
Yeah, it really has.
I mean, who knew that something as simple as counting backwards from 5 could have such a profound impact on our lives?
Yeah. And like we talked about, it's not just about like getting things done.
Right.
It's about like facing our fears.
Yeah.
Speaking our truth.
Yes.
And really like stepping into our power.
Exactly. It's about taking control of our thoughts and our actions.
Right.
And creating the lives that we truly want to live.
And it all starts with that 5-second countdown.
That's right.
Yeah.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And you're off.
You're off to the races.
Wow, this was an awesome deep dive.
I agree.
Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
And to our listener, give it a try.
Try the 5-second rule.
See what happens.
You might be surprised.
Yeah, you never know.
At what you're capable of.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
See you next time.